Hi, my name is Daryl, and I'm a veteran.
Hey, I'm Travis. I'm an Air Force veteran.
Hey, my name's Jonathan, and I'm a veteran.
Hi, my name's Ashley, and I'm a veteran.
My name is Chad, and I'm a veteran.
Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with a Vet. My name is Carol Lee, and I want to thank each and every one of you for being here this Sunday evening. Before we get to my guest who's waiting patiently in the wings, a huge shout out to a previous guest and a friend, and his name is Tim Thomas, and he has sent me his book all the way from Australia, Tim Thomas, Fight, Flight, Feel, Discover the Power Within to Transform Your Outside World. Great read. If you all are interested in checking that out, you can do so. And it's Breathworks in Bed. Is his company. So thank you very much, Tim, for sending that all the way across the pond. So if you would, everybody, help me welcome my friend and mentor, Travis Partington.
Carol Lee, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm savage, Carol Lee.
You
savage.
You are a rock star. So I have to say, it hasn't been long since I've talked to you.
Oh, here we go.
But
so good.
No, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going there today. You sound very good. And so you do a lot of running all over the place. You are like here and there. You kind of just are traveling all over the place. So I want to say thank you for taking the time to come on tonight and helping me fill the spot. So appreciate it. It's always great to hear you. You've got a wonderful, wonderful voice. So always soothing. Kind of calms me, relaxes me down.
Well, good stuff. Good to be here. And yeah, it's been, let's see here, 7:00. I drove 200 miles to Connecticut, did my Oscar Mike radio thing there, and then drove back the same day. And now I'm here talking with you. It's just all part of the game.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. So it's been a while. We had you on as a guest once before, and I've been on your podcast a couple of times now. And I want to know a little bit, for those who have not seen your original interview, I want to go back to when you were a kid, what life was like growing up for you, Travis.
Well, it was in two phases, really. The first phase, I was grew up in Illinois as a 40-acre farm. My dad was a coal miner, and we grew what we ate. I shoveled coal to heat our home, milked cows, cleaned chicken coops, picked cockleburrs, blackberries, raspberries, the whole 9 yards. It was a lot of work.
And you know how to can?
No, I forgot. Well, I did, but I forgot all about it. I don't can anymore. I don't eat vegetables, so I don't have to worry about it.
The green stuff, right? I know. I'm right there with you.
I mean, gardens are a lot of work, Carol Lee.
I know. I tried one last year. It was like a 10 by 20 garden. And yeah, it did not go over well. Besides all the weeding, which, that's non-existent, but I had somebody help mow, and they mowed over my garden.
All that work.
Well, I know. It was like, well, I'm sure there'll probably be potatoes in the ground, for years to come, but nothing is sprouted that I know of. So,
we went from then my dad got a job down south in a coal mine. As strange as that may sound, because the South is so wet, but there's coal down there.
mm-hmm.
And long stuff, happened and life happened, and I joined the Marine Corps from Shreveport Bossier, and here we are. So it
Nice.
was something else.
And were you an only child?
Oh, no.
Ha.
I was adopted actually because my parents couldn't have children. They adopted me, and now I'm the eldest of 9. My youngest brother is 20 years younger than me.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. That's amazing. I love the adoption stories. I really do. Because
Yeah.
as you know, we adopted our oldest. And yeah, so I'm all for adoption. So you lived in a small town in the South, or was
No, it's a small town in Illinois. Well, we were out in the country, but the town nearest us was 300 people, and then we
okay?
went down to Shreveport, Louisiana, which is about 200,000 people, give or take a few. And it was much larger. Got to go to Dallas, the big city. It's like 180 miles away from Shreveport, and Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, things like that. And you get to see the real city. But then, you go back to Louisiana, go 15 miles outside of Shreveport, and you're in the sticks, in the swamp, in the bayou. So it was a very interesting life.
How was it for school, for your education? What was that like? That was still in the South in Louisiana?
Yeah, because we moved down there when I was, 14, 15 years old. So I was homeschooled. My parents homeschooled me. That's what they wanted to do. And, I'm like, in today's age, if you as a parent want to homeschool your child, you should be able to. You should be supported. You should be allowed to do that.
It's interesting that you talk about being homeschooled, just for the fact that, and I'm not talking about age. I'm generalizing here, just to put that out
Yeah,
there.
sure.
Is that back in our day, right? Homeschooling was not something you heard about very often.
Yeah.
So, how difficult was that for you, being homeschooled versus public school?
Well, I don't know because I never went to public school, but I will say this. And I've tried to be very nice to other parents who are, you know, getting into homeschooling their child now. And they asked me about that. I said, well, the thing you have to remember is, and there's no easy way to say this, is the world you're teaching your children to operate in is not the world they're going to encounter outside the home. It's just not.
Yeah.
And man, did I learn that the hard way. Certain things that my parents put a premium on were not seen as, worthwhile attributes. That being said, there were several other things that they did and focused on that definitely, helped me out. This funny story, the Marine Corps didn't want to take me at the time. They were absolutely not taking anybody with a GED.
Oh,
And at the time, it's not this way now, is in Louisiana, because I was homeschooled, the only way to get some kind of certificate was to take the GED. And, I took the GED about halfway through. The teachers are like, you're done. I mean, you're acing every test. There's no reason to have you go through all of them. You're good. So I'm like, I want to join the Marine Corps. Can you at least give me the ASVAB? I mean, and I said, because they have ASVAB waivers. I knew this. They had ASVAB waivers. I mean, if you're not smart enough, you can get an ASVAB waiver to go in. So I'm like, well, just give me the same shot as somebody else. I mean, you have a way. So they
yeah.
agreed to give me the ASVAB, and I scored high enough, really high enough. I'm in the top, 5 percentile of the Marine Corps.
Look at you.
And all of a sudden, it was like, well, we can get that waiver drafted next week. Don't you go anywhere. I said, well, after all this, I might as well just go check out the Army and the Air Force while I'm at it. No. We got that. But I learned you had to produce. You had to put out when the time came. And if you put out a good product, people want to get behind it. So
Yeah.
did the Marine Corps thing, did the Hawk thing, where I was a radar operator for the Hawk missile system. And it was a cool MOS. There's no two ways about it. I really enjoyed it. And but long story short, Hawk went away, and I got hurt, and I wound up meeting my, then wife, and moved to the New England area, and got used to being a stranger in a strange land again. New England is not like other parts of the U.S. It's just not. I try to tell people they're different than us, and they really are. Um, in a good way sometimes, in a bad way other times, I feel. But I've been here a long time, and they're like, "You're still not from around here. You still say you're ours. You don't sound like us.
Yeah.
And what's the deal?" But that's where it was. And when I got out of the Marine Corps, I had to get a job. I had to provide for my family, and that was a stressful time, because one thing I am pleased to say is, now there's some real programs and real meat for people who, if they want to get out and they want to start a career in something, companies have figured out the value of veterans in their workforce and have made mentorship programs, onboarding programs, OJT, on the job training programs for veterans. And there was none of that when I got out. I mean, I remember being told, well, we're an elite organization, and I don't think you survive here. I'm like, well, maybe not, but I've been a member of an elite organization myself, and I know what it takes to, you know, uh, succeed there. And I was very surprised that people actually had the chutzpah to say that. But you, you know, things have changed, and I'm glad to see this changing in certain areas, and some things I still think need work on. But overall, I'm very proud of my Marine Corps time. Short time to be sure, but I'll tell anybody, it's I got a lot out of it, and it's still today. It's teaching me lessons and supporting what I do. The mental mindset, the will to succeed, and the will to get things done.
Absolutely. So let's go back and talk a little bit about the Hawk missiles. So
Yeah.
was that your original MOS? Is that what you signed up to do?
I signed up for the aviation. So the Marine Corps had where you could sign up for the aviation support MOS group. And in that group of MOSs was like weather service, air traffic control, crash fire rescue, avionics, cryogenics, a whole bunch of other things,
That's a lot.
stingers and Avengers. But mainly, support MOSs for the air wing. Everything from aircraft mechanics up to avionics, ejection seats, flight instruments, all that stuff. And Hawk was one of them. And I made the score. I made the aptitude score and the other scores to be a Hawker. So that's how I got it.
That's awesome. And tell me, okay, knowing what they are, right? Obviously, it's a missile. Were you ever thinking to yourself, God, I hope I don't screw this up?
Well, I mean, the main thing I was hoping, if I ever had to get behind the scope and tell my lieutenant to fire one, is, man, I sure hope I locked up on the right airplane and identified it. Because right as the time we were going to Hawk School, a Patriot battery had hit a friendly. It hit a friendly Saudi plane, an
Oh,
F-15.
wow.
And so they put a premium, a lot of emphasis on aircraft ID in Hawk School. And I ate that up. I'd grown up around an Air Force town, and knew how this stuff looked. I went to every air show. That wasn't a problem. But yeah, there's I tell people all the time, it was a combination of very physical job with radars and the missile launcher and building the missiles, physical with driving those big trucks in the desert, what that took out of you. And plus we were doing this in 115, 120 degree heat. There's a lot of potential for human error and human problems. I like to think that, but we drilled this stuff every day. I mean, the sergeant would have his stopwatch out there timing us, and providing remedial education and encouragement if we didn't meet the standard. So you were motivated to, get it done.
Yeah.
If you got all your stuff for the week, he might let you go a half hour early, on a Friday,
Hey.
you know, 15, 17, 30 versus 6 o'clock was a pretty sweet deal. But then there's a middle side of putting it all together. I mean, we had these big armored laptops we took up to the gear and program the launchers and program the radars, and you had to know how to maneuver through the laptop's operating system. It was like a Unix system, really, was what it was, and make all this stuff work. And
Right.
The standard for a Hawk battery emplacement is 45 minutes from when the main control band hits the area to have a missile rate of fire, and that's hard to do. Which is why if you go and look at some of the European sites, some of them are still there, some of them are not. Most of them are stationary. It's a very complex operation to what we call march order, the equipment getting ready to moving somewhere, setting it all up, making sure all the equipment works and getting ready to fire. It's much easier to take, 10 different batteries and have them in a line over 100 miles and, get coverage that way and just keep them there. So it was an interesting MOS. It was a very different kind of MOS. It was kind of against the Marine Corps ethos. It's a defensive MOS versus offensive, which is what we are. But, as we're seeing Ukraine right now, and the very cool thing we're seeing is, hey, we've been told and we've figured it out that a lot of the equipment that we mothballed back in 98 and 99 is being used in Ukraine right now. I mean, and they took it out of the mothballs, ran new cables, updated all the software, got everything ready to go and shipped it over to Ukraine. And sure enough, it's doing its job. I think it's shot down 3 different aircraft right now.
Wow.
And that was pretty cool to see. It's like, okay, what we did and how we trained, somebody else learned from it, were able to defend themselves. And when you start understanding how fast, Mach 1 and Mach 1.5 is, and how fast that is and how fast they can drop a missile on your target, whether it's a hospital, a base, a command center, fuel depot, all of a sudden now, and with the aspect of drones, there's a huge emphasis on air defense. So it's
Right.
kind of weird how what's old is new again, and something borrowed something blue, but here we are. We're trying to figure out ways to stop much smaller aircraft now. I mean, it's crazy.
That's really interesting, and it's coming. This new technology is coming so quickly, not just to the military, but the public sector too, right? I mean, things are happening quickly. I'm sure that they'll find a defense for drones if they haven't already. But that, it's interesting too that you went there with that, because that was kind of a question I had on my mind, as far as, do you ever see them bringing the Hawk missile back?
It's still being used. It is a Korean War era system, and it's still being used because it's reliable, it's scalable, and for what it is, it does what it does very, very well. And it's relatively, compared to the Patriot systems, some other air defense systems now, inexpensive. And if you're one of those countries or regions that use it in a static way, where you're not having to march order in place every week, it's once you get the system up and running, as long as you have power going to it. I mean, we had radars we could run for 3 weeks in the field. They wouldn't even cough, 24 hours a day.
Wow.
We'd shut them down, haul them back to main side, get them up and going again. And after sitting for a week, they were cantankerous. They leaks in the hydraulic hoses, electrical boards acting up. These things were designed to run 24/7, 365. So when you get that in and right what to do, it's not that much money to run these.
Oh, yeah. So your time in the Marine Corps, you get injured.
Yep.
Or become injured. And how did that occur?
I wish it was something, John Wayne-esque or but it's simply I was on a boots and use run or in the desert and stepped in a crevice and, wrenched my right leg really bad. And, I damaged my patella tendon and, just could not maintain the speed in a formation run or the PFT. And it just started getting worse and worse, where I'm like, I can't really PT anymore. weight's going to start coming on, and I got it. If you can't PT, you can't do the job, they're going to separate you. And my lieutenant's like, hey, look, he was a captain at the time. If you try to stay in, you can't make the stand. I'm going to have to, treat you differently than if we just, med you out right now, give you an honorable discharge, and, you can do life that way. And it made sense to me. There was, our MOS was shut down. It was being replaced by the Patriot Battery. The cutting score for corporal was higher than it was for sergeant, so we couldn't get promoted anymore. And I didn't want to re-up because I didn't want to go to some, other job I didn't really like or want to do. And it just made sense. So, and right at that time, I met my, now ex-wife, and I'm like, okay, I'm in love. This must be ordained. That's a whole different story. But it just made sense to get out, and I did.
And your time in reflecting back, was there anything that you could think of that you would have done differently while you were in, other than not stepping in the crevice?
Yeah, I wish I had done my MC. This was really, really weird. The Marine Corps has courses you can take.
Mm-hmm.
And this might sound crazy, but I wish I'd put a lot more effort into those easy promotion points. And I wish I had really, knowing what I know now,
right,
I would have put a lot more effort into trying to get meritoriously promoted. There was a couple of meritorious boards, and I just wasn't ready. And not that it's a big deal. No one cares I was a Lance Corporal versus a Corporal or NCO. It really doesn't mean anything out here in the civilian world. It really doesn't. But just personally, I wish I'd worked harder.
Yeah. And I think reflecting.
Yeah, I was just like, once they canceled the MOS, it's like, what are we doing here? How could they get this so wrong? Let's not do this again. And I was ready to get out.
Right. So obviously, hindsight, right?
Claudia's saying she can't hear.
And I think I haven't seen anybody else say, if everybody else can hear, go ahead and post that for me if you can hear what's going on.
I can hear it on the YouTube.
I keep my volume down, but
no, I can hear on the YouTube. It's good.
Okay. And they're probably, it looks like they're on Facebook. So I don't know, just double check, Claudia, your volume, make sure you're not, I don't know. I'm not sure. So you get out of the Marine Corps. Yeah, Jason can hear on YouTube.
I just heard
something. Yeah. So you get out, you're medically discharged. And did you already have something in place as far as the job went?
Not really, no.
No, your job at that time was just recovering from your injury?
It was /recovery/ trying to find a job.
Yeah.
And my first job out of the Marine Corps was working at CVS, which actually I take that back. No, that was right. I worked at CVS and that was just brutal.
What did you do there?
I worked in the pharmacy, and I'm like, I wasn't a pharmacist. I had to deal with old men wanting to entertain their ladies, if you know what I mean.
The Viagra? Is that where we're going?
Yeah. And he had run out, and he was trying to con the pharmacist into giving him a little extra something. I got a hot date in the car, and you all suck. I'm trying to, like, it's just not enough money.
That's great. That is a great story, though. That's not one that you hear about every day, right? So, what was it like for you mentally, right? I mean, you don't have that daily direction, and that you had in the Marine Corps of, you need to be here at this time and do this at this time. How did you deal with that mentally? What kind of strain did that provide, if any?
Well, I think one of the things, unfortunately, I didn't deal with it, and not then, but several years later, I realized, that was a hard time for me, a lot harder than I wanted to let on, because I didn't have any of my family around, I had none of my friends around, I had none of my battery mates around. I had to figure out a new environment. I'd never been to New England before. All the cultural customs you have to learn how to get around, and hey, you need to get a job and get some money coming in to do your part as a husband and soon to be father. So it wasn't until much later, because I'm like, I don't really hang out with people. I really don't do this and do that, and it's because, well, I just didn't find people in my lane. And
Right.
I got asked, about 10, 15 years later, hey, why don't you come to the end of the American Legion? I'm like, no, because I went to the American Legion, right after I got out, and tried to say, hey, I'm new here. I'm trying to figure it out. And, those old guys in the American Legion wanted nothing to do with me and made it very clear that, hey, don't bother coming back. And I didn't for almost 20 years. I just didn't have anything to do with them. So at the time, it was very stressful just trying to, get life going again. But looking back now, yeah, I was partially homesick, partially, missing my battery mates, and partially, like, in a strange land.
Right. And how did you end up dealing with that? How did you get through that?
I don't really think I did, Carol Lee, to tell you the truth. I don't really think I ever really took the time to invest in that part of myself. I got, I had, three sons in a relatively short amount of time. And then they, started school with sports and hockey and other things. And it was just go, go, go. And, we're doing this. And then I realized something's wrong with my marriage. And then I realized, oh, snap, something really is wrong with my marriage. I mean, not my choice. And, it wasn't until I was divorced and living on my own again and having to rebuild myself that I'm like, this sucks. This is absolutely terrible. I didn't ask for any of this. I gave up so much to be here. But then on the other hand, I'm like, I get a chance to kind of rebuild it all over again. And it was at this time, you know, I got connected with some guys at, an AM radio station in Taunton, Massachusetts, and I would do guest hosting when they had a military or veteran topic on or a guest on, and found out I really liked it, and found out
That's
that
awesome.
some people were like, hey, you're kind of good at this for never having done it before. You could have your own show if you wanted. Well, an hour airtime on the AM spectrum it starts at $500, and I'm like, okay, we're not doing that. An hour. So to do 4 shows a month is $2,000 before you break even at all. So I'm like, well, that's not doable. And right around that time, I had joined the Marine Corps League, and it's something that I wish I had known about, several years before, because they were primarily, you know, Korean War and Vietnam era veterans there, Marines, and yeah, these are old guys, and they're cranky sometimes and ornery. But on the other hand, they had seen a whole lot of stuff. Life had kicked some of them in the rear end before, and it was just a place to go. And we were going to, do our ritual for funerals. And between 2014 and 2018, we did a bunch of them. And it's because of the suicide epidemic really started taking hold. Like,
Right.
people were killing themselves with alarming regularity. And this is where the idea to start Oscar Mike Radio came from. So, yeah, Timothy, I get it. I was renting a very 800 square foot apartment with nothing in it, everything from Facebook Marketplace. I get it, dude. But I have come out on the other side swinging.
You just gotta, figure out who you are, right? What you want to be and how you want to live your life. And I think that takes a lot of insight. And sometimes it takes a little time before mentally you're prepared to look inside and see what's there and what you got to do to move forward.
Absolutely.
So you start Oscar Mike Radio.
Yep.
And what was it then specifically that just said, I need to do something like Oscar Mike Radio? For those of you who don't know, also, if you could explain Oscar Mike Radio for our listeners.
Sure, I'll answer both questions in one answer. So, I started Oscar Mike Radio, like I said, when I was in the Marine Corps League, and we would do these. The Marine Corps League nationwide has a burial ritual we will do for veterans, and we did a lot of these for veterans that had committed suicide. At the end of the ritual, you shake hands or hug the family. And I'm walking in line, and a mother says, why did he do it and not you guys? And that shook me to my core because, I will never say that I had PTSD from my military service. I went through some bad times. I lost some Marines that I served with in peacetime through accidents, but I don't have PTSD from service. But I absolutely will say that during the time of divorce and custody battle and other things, I knew where the abyss was. I knew where it was. I had looked down into the abyss and couldn't see the bottom. I had stepped right up to it, and I knew exactly where that line was. I think for me, my sons, more than anything else, I've got to hang in there for them somehow, some way. I've got to draw on all the stuff I learned in the Marine Corps and beat this thing. So I'm doing that with the Marine Corps League, and I'm doing the guest hosting. And it's like, I want to do something that will give people hope. My story, other stories. There's got to be a way to share, the guys who figure out a way to get through their valley of the shadow of the death and stay in their fight. And maybe if I talk about it enough, somebody somewhere will be impacted to a point where they will stay in their fight. And I'll learn, and I'll be able to serve other people. And I April 2016, I'm just out of pure happenstance. I had a voice teacher at the time. I was trying to see if I could get back into singing. Long story, and I went to this Dale Dorman Media Day at Massasoit Community College, and I met Keith Hayes. He's doing this breakout session on podcasting. I told him afterwards what I was trying to do. He's like, this could work. And between April and July, I worked on the concept. In July, launched a podcast in 2016. And, the first 30 shows were absolutely terrible. It wasn't until, really, I think episode 112, 115, 117 that it got going. And 117 was special to me because I was interviewing an Army National Guard veteran who ran his own contracting business. And I was very interested in how he did it. He's a very unique guy, and I really respected, the work he did and how he did it. And I'm like, hey, I don't have a studio, but could we meet at Dunkin' Donuts? I'll set up my rig and we'll go there. Like, okay, sure. And we get to the end of that show. I finished recording up. And I said, well, Steve, what'd you think? He's like, I don't know much about this podcasting stuff. And it was kind of weird being in Dunkin' Donuts, to be honest with you, Travis. I'm like, he doesn't even have his own studio, but you got to remember, we're in Massachusetts. This is how they do it up here. So it's kind of weird. But he's like, you know what? I will tell you this. I felt pretty at ease with you. I felt really comfortable with what you were doing, and I liked how you asked the questions. He's like, I don't know much, and it's kind of weird, but you got something going. So I'll tell you this, if you can figure out a way to keep adding value to your guest, I don't think you'll be wrong. And that really stuck with me because he's right. I mean, I had, a Zoom H6, a couple of mics, and a laptop, and that was it. I have, you look at the equipment I have now, and we're getting, it's nice. Like I've got like extra stuff. Even it's fantastic. I got all kinds of tools for
Yeah.
whatever the need is. And I didn't have that back then. I was only like a year and a half into this, man, and it was just like, man, we are pinching pennies, recycling cans anyway to keep this going. But he was like, "That's the value of what you provided that stood out to him." And so ever since then, I have stuck with this thing that it's not about trying to be the big name. It's not about this or that. It's about adding value to the person in front of me, and then other people get value from that, and that's worked for me so far.
I think that's wonderful. I absolutely think that's wonderful. And you've been doing this now for 10 years?
10 years.
10
Over 10
years. And I know you've hit your 500th interview.
Yep.
But what else and where else? Because I know, but I don't know that our guests know, that our audience knows. Where else have you been to share your experience with the military and been like a commentator, if you will, for that?
Well, I've gotten to talk to people at the VA. I've gotten to talk to people in all different areas, but a couple of years ago, I got asked to go on C-SPAN on national TV. I've been asked to be on C-SPAN 5 times, and basically, it's during the Veterans or Memorial Day weekend. I get asked to come on and take questions from people nationwide about certain veterans issues, and it's very interesting. I have no idea what's coming, who I'm talking to, and I cannot see. People don't believe me, but I can't see the host that you see on TV. I am looking at a screen that says C-SPAN on it with a black background. That's it. So, before I go on, I'll see who the host is and get an idea of who they are, so I can kind of in my mind see them as I talk to them. But I have no idea what question's coming next. I have no idea how this is going, or really how I do. I just try to really stay calm and cool, and try to meet that person where they are. You get some cranks, you get some people just trolling, trying to be agitators, but you're just cool there. But that's been a very unique experience. Through this, I started doing some voiceover work. So there's some, if you know where to look, there's some stuff with me doing voiceover stuff. And most recently, I got asked to. I had a Pulitzer Prize winning photographer on Oscar Mike Radio, and he did a book called Boston Veterans Appreciation. And his, number 2 and guy who handles all the logistics and everything, Paul Doyle, wrote a poem in the front of that book, and he asked me to try to read it for him. So I'm going to read the poem, put it up really, really nice, and maybe see what happens there. And the thing is, I'm getting asked to do more and more of that, vocal work stuff, which I am starting to really enjoy.
And you do such a great job of it. I know you and I have had that conversation a while back, and that you just have one of those soothing, calming voices that I think really help benefit anybody listening to you. It just, especially anybody who's in that really active mindset, and just hearing it just calms you down. It just really does. You have a great voice.
So I got told that one of my friends said, "Hey, you did this reading. It was like 6 minutes long, and my blood pressure dropped."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we're on to something here. So more to follow.
Yes. And definitely we'll be following up on that. You have been, you work full time, you're giving back to veterans by giving them a platform to speak and tell their story, but not just veterans. Now, you also do a show there for, what is that? It's for veterans, but what is that?
So for the town of Abington,
yes.
excuse me, town of Abington, I do a show called Abington Veterans Muster. So the director of Veteran Services, Adam Gunn, he's a U.S. Navy chief, retired, wanted a show that would be able to connect people to what he's doing in the town of Abington. So, and I'm like, well, you could do this. Like, no, I don't want to do it. I think you'd be better suited for it. And so I thought about how I would do it, how I'd approach it, came up with the name, came up with the concept. And, I've been doing it for almost 3 years now. And it's different than podcasting, whereas with a podcast, I have to do everything, watch everything like you're doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
With a TV show, you kind of go in there to the studio, the cameras are already set up, they mic you up, sound check your levels, check your angles, and then you're off and running. And it's like, oh, wow, there's a whole lot of mental overhead. I just don't have to worry about it. It's just like all done for you. Wow.
Yeah.
So, but what's happened is people in Abington are connecting with what the Director of Veteran Services wants to do. Certain updates to Massachusetts has the Chapter 115 section of our Code of Law, and that governs how veterans are provided for in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So, some good information there. But the coolest thing that happened a couple months ago is a gentleman in Louisiana caught the show on YouTube and wrote the show in saying, hey, I'm struggling with my VA benefits. Can you help me? Adam gets with the contact out of the New Orleans office for work. He's down South Louisiana, and they got him help. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. Like, we had no idea that somebody from Louisiana was watching this, and you just never know. And it's really kind of different when I'm at the grocery store, at the American Legion, or somewhere else, and someone comes up to me and says, hey, I watched your show the other week, and I got a lot out of it, and it was cool. Thank you very much. So it's been a really different way to be creative, but also grow my skills, and then again, meet people in Abington where they are.
During all of this and where you are today in your journey after the Marine Corps, would your younger self have ever thought of you being where you are today with what you're doing?
No. I mean, when I started this 10 years ago, I was just saying if I could, get out of my own way and try to feel like I had some worth and value again. I had no idea any of this was available or even possible. There are a lot of veteran podcasters, as you know, who have a lot more money, funding, sponsorship, so on and so forth, that in my view don't enjoy the success I have. And what I've been able to, I mean, just as an aside, my 10th year show rolls in, and I'm honored by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for my work in Oscar Mike Radio, official citation, and they vetted me out pretty thoroughly. I didn't think that was going to happen. I wasn't asked for that.
That was a complete surprise. Like, they did that right at the end of your show, right?
They worked hard because they knew, it's hard to pull one over on me like that. So that was a multi-pronged effort, and they really coordinated well on it. Hats off to them. But as far as being on TV, as far as seeing some of the things I'm able to see and participate in some of the things like today, I got to do. No, I was just hoping to put out some shows, see what happens. Maybe, someone would like it, maybe not, because, that's at the end of the day, I'm like, when I end this, it'll end someday, not anytime soon, but I just want to know that I impacted one life in a positive way. And that's all I'm thinking about more than anything else. So I had no idea, none.
And now what do you do in your spare time?
Spare time, so I compete in weightlifting, getting ready for a meet next March. And then, I find time to, get my, freedom flinger, whether it's a string freedom flinger or another one. I do that and ride my motorcycle. That's pretty much it. And then I like playing my Xbox. I really do. So,
do you have a favorite game?
Gears of War is coming out in October. I'm taking a day off. I can't wait. Well, Gears of War has a very emotional attachment to me because when I was going through my divorce, I'd play that game, and there was a couple guys I played with. And I think I remember. I think I thought about it. They were just kind of keeping tabs, but you had to show up and go through the boards together. And that was the game during that time. And so Gears of War was always has a special place for me. So I can't wait for the new one.
That's funny.
Big Gears of War fan, big Skyrim fan, big Borderlands fan. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And now, one of the things that I know that you do, and probably doing at this very moment while we're talking, is crochet. So tell me how you got into crocheting.
Well, you are right.
Oh, I love that pattern.
So I've been crocheting for almost 10 years. I think I got exposed to crochet in September 10 years ago, and then got going in November. So my first, call to action, altruistic moment with Oscar Mike Radio was one of my friends said, "Hey, there's this lady in Georgia. Her name is Jill St. Jakes, and she is trying to get yarn to give, blankets to veterans. She takes the yarn, makes blankets out, and gives it to veterans, and she needs help, and because yarn costs money, and she makes a lot of them." And I didn't know jack about shite with crochet at all. I'm like, okay, I don't know anything about this, but started asking around. And then some of my coworkers at the time had a Project Linus Club. And Project Linus is a group, it's nationwide, that makes blankets for kids with cancer. So Boston is a big pediatric cancer hospital up here. And so a lot of people make blankets for, those individuals, right? So my coworkers had 8 bags of yarn. And they said, "You know what? We'll give you the yarn. We'll give you the yarn. But you have to learn how to crochet." Typical New England woman. And it wasn't because they didn't expect me to crochet. It was just to watch the big Marine with the big, huge mitts work the crochet hook. They're going to laugh. The New England women will help you, but they're going to laugh at you first before they help you. They get theirs up front. Whereas Southern women will just, "Well, bless your heart, honey. I'll help you out." New England women want to laugh at you first. So, and they did. But I'm like, you know what? I'm doing this thing, and I'm trying to get the hook to do its thing. And I'm like, I am not going to let some string and a piece of metal beat me. No freaking way. I'm going to learn this thing. And so I just stuck with it. And then all of a sudden, this is November 2016 when I really got started. And she got her yarn. Story ended great. But it wasn't until April of 2017 that all of a sudden it clicked, and the movements became good. And now I can sit here and crank out a blanket while I'm talking to you.
Yeah, I don't know how you do it because I still end up skipping because of you. I have to say, and I hadn't crocheted anything since I was 10, and it was, some crooked pot holder with, anyway. And so I was like, I'm going to try this. I'm going to give it a shot. And I did this baby blanket for a coworker, a crocheted baby blanket for the coworker, that they were having a newborn coming up, and I didn't count my stitches. So the whole thing, although it was beautiful, it's a beautiful stitch, but it started out this long, and pretty soon it went like this. So I gave it to him anyway. I was like, "Here you go." And then come to find out, it's only one of 2 blankets that they use for their child. And I was like, "Aw." So it's quite interesting to, I've learned though I'm better off when I do everything in groups, groups of a stitch of 4 or something like that. So, but yeah, so because of you, I started crocheting.
Nice.
So yeah. And what do you do with these blankets for yourself when you get them completed?
One of 3 things. They'll go to either the local project, like a Michael's or Joanne Fabrics. They're a collection point for Project Linus blankets. I'll give them to the New England Center and Home for Veterans, for the veterans there. And then, like this one's going to go to the Veterans Center. But there's a camo one I'm working on, and I'll make a couple of these a year for fundraisers.
Nice.
And it's really weird seeing once some of these women figure out that I made it, and it's like, oh yeah, I'll definitely get that. So I made an American one time, like a U.S. flag one that did really well, and then the last one I did helped raise money for a mobility band for veterans. So it's cool. I've never kept any of my blankets. I get done with them, tag them, and give them away. And that's good with me. I can't really tell you why I do it, but I just do it. I just do it.
Kind of gets you out of your head, though, right?
Yeah, it's a different headspace. You can't really think about it too much. You can't not think about it. So it's good.
Right. Yeah, because that's amazing. So for anybody watching, if you guys have some questions for Travis, go ahead and put those out in the chats. And then so Tony Hendricks said, didn't know you were a jarhead, Travis. Semper Fi, brother.
Semper Fi, Tony.
And he said he was in the Iraq war and divorce is worse in some ways.
Amen.
Jason says, thank you, Travis, for being here.
No problem.
Let's see. And Timothy said he spent nearly a year and a half of the last 2 years in the VA hospital and domiciliary. Great place to share with other veterans.
Yep.
And recovering from divorce while dealing with all of this, what helped the most?
Ooh, I think helping people helped me the most, because as bad as my day got, sometimes there was always somebody who had it worse. And sometimes those people who you're going to the VA and you're helping out a little bit, doing whatever, and you realize that this person is living in a 10 by 20 room with a 13-inch TV and is happy as all get out that you brought them a donut and some coffee. You just made their freaking month.
Yeah.
And so, throughout all this, I've learned to be very grateful in life and have a true sense of gratitude.
Love it. Absolutely love it. He also said that he had just started playing is that World of Warfare? Okay. With a Navy vet and my Iraq Army vet roommate.
Let's go.
I can't play any of the first person. I have to be looking down.
Well, you're more of a technical person.
Well, it makes me sick. Like literally makes me sick to my stomach, to where like I get dizzy and nauseous and all of that, just because of that constant. It's so quick and my eyes just aren't like they used to be.
Tell me about it.
So if there was one thing that you wanted to pass along to the younger generation of military individuals, regardless of branch, what would that be?
I guess the one thing I would say is you're getting a whole lot out of life right now that other people will never have. Be proud of the service that you gave to our country. And then when you get out, remember there are things you can do and places you can go to be welcomed, celebrated, and have purpose again. So find your purpose after you serve.
Love it. Absolutely love it. I'm not seeing any additional comments or questions for you. I want to say again, Travis, thank you so very much for popping on today. I know, like I said, you're a very busy guy, and which is good, right? It just keeps you moving. I know I watch you and your videos that you post for your weightlifting as well. And it's amazing watching you hit those personal goals that you have and hitting those records, and just seeing you staying true to yourself, I think is such an uplifting thing for anybody watching.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, we could do a whole show just on that, what went on during that. Some of it is a result of my military service, but again, that is just the gratitude I had to be able to do that again. And it is something that means a lot to me, and I'm just happy to do it. And that's the thing. Whether it's weightlifting or basket weaving or kayaking or canoeing or whatever, there's something out there that you can do that you can make your own, and I would encourage you to do that.
And you're not limited to just one thing.
No.
I can tell you, and my husband can tell you, probably drives him nuts. I have like 12 different things that I rotate in and out. I'll do something, gung ho for 2, 3, 4 months in a row, and then I get bored, and I'm like, I need something else. And pretty soon, I'm constantly in and out of different things and going back and forth.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, keeps me out of trouble, and I can get into trouble if I'm not careful. So, well, again, thank you, Travis. It has been an absolute pleasure. And for the rest of you, join me next Sunday, if you would. I have another guest coming up, and we will see you next Sunday at 6 p.m. Central Time. So thank you, everybody, for joining. And Trav, if you want to hold tight for me, I'll be with you in just a second. Everybody else, have a great rest of your week.
Hi, I'm Beaker with Military Broadcast Radio TV. We're your virtual MWR, bringing veterans radio, podcasts, gaming, animation, 3D printing, and a community that never leaves you behind. Download our Roku or mobile app today.
Wisdom to share if you listen this week, so pull up a chair and stay for a spell. We're heading down a trail where good stories dwell. It started